when you were growing up for those kids who were a little bit too much in the white classrooms to be not, and I don't know if this is going to sound wrong, but to not be black enough or something like that?
That doesn't sound wrong. I've heard that. I've heard that most of my life.
Yeah, well, that I didn't know how to say it without sounding incorrect. So if I was,
Yeah, I know. I understand that. And I appreciate your sensitivity, but courageous conversations, right?
right, right.
But yes, but that's human nature, isn't it?
Yeah.
Welcome to Peter and Phil's Courageous Conversations, a podcast addressing race relations and social issues in hopes that you'll be inspired to do the same. Now, let's begin our conversation with your hosts, Dr. Peter Weinstein and Dr. Philip Nelson.
How are you doing?
I am doing well. Last week was graduation, which was very cool. And Brooke's all settled and ready to go to Australia. In fact, she already has her license in Australia. Now she just has to deal with the work visa.
All right.
So have you figured out how you're going to spend the rest of your summer?
Not yet. I'm not. I've barely figured out how I'm going to spend my next week. I have solidified some of my. I do know that I'm going to be here for the rest of the summer.
Okay.
And
so your mom's okay. You don't need to go see her in Jackson or anything like that.
Well, when I say here, I mean rooted here.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm going to Jackson.
So that the house isn't for sale, is what you're saying.
Right.
Okay.
Right. As a matter of fact, the house isn't for sale because we haven't seriously gotten to Jackson to look. We have seen virtual houses. We have an idea of what we want to. We want. We don't have an idea of where we want it. I'm still torn with the, as much as I've made the commitment to go back because of my parents, I am equally, how do I put this? I am equally reluctant to go because of politics of the state. It's funny, the politics are so bad in the state that I may not live in Jackson because real estate values are not equal to the values of real estate surrounding Jackson because of the politics, and it's by design, and that bothers me so badly. On the other hand, I could look at it as an investment and then become politically active to try to turn it around, because frankly, I see the state eating itself in order to control a demographic in the population. There is a self-defeating pride in being at the bottom in just about everything, as long as they maintain control, and they don't want to expand. I feel as if somebody could just go there and just say, remind everybody what everybody really wants.
So there's still a 20th century, 19th century feel, tremendous amount of segregation, I would assume, still in and around Jackson.
Segregation there's a segregated mentality,
right?
But not segregation,
right? So there is a lack of integration.
Well, I shouldn't even say there's more of a domination.
Okay.
Mentality, a separation mentality, as long as you know your place. Now, at the personal level, we're Southerners. You walk into a store, you're nice to each other, blah, blah, blah. When it gets into the politics, though, that's when you find that, and there are certain stereotypes that are promoted or established by the politics now. I shouldn't say established, that endure because of the politics. And it works from both sides. I watch city council meetings, and The city council, I think, has about 9 or maybe 12 people. Let's say it's 12. The makeup of it, 9 of them are Black, 3 of them are white, which kind of tells you demographic makeup of Jackson, right? And every discussion, whether it's about the garbage contract or the water problem or the potholes in the streets or anything else, every discussion openly involves race. Every discussion is about minority contractors or making sure we get a Black person to do this or questioning a white vendor, or it's not about the outcome. And so that's what I mean by it goes both ways. It's and to see how far, and I understand why. It's because these are the people who survived the opposite, where nobody got a fair shake if your skin tone was darker than a piece of paper, white paper. And when I was a young kid, I remember being involved in the city council. I was one of those, I was an overachiever, even as a child. But I want to recommend a book to you called Eloquent Rage.
Let me find my notes, put some notes down. I have a note to watch that show on Nat Geo, but I haven't gotten to it yet. But
Nat Geo, what show is that?
A Small Light.
Oh, A Small Light, yeah.
Elegant Rage, okay.
Eloquent Rage.
Eloquent Rage, okay.
Yeah.
Eloquent Rage, got it.
Anyway, it's about, the author was on Chris Hayes' podcast, and she eloquently captured my life, an aspect of my life that I had not understood or that I had not consciously recognized. And that is, she has a PhD and she's a feminist, and she a vocal feminist and an author, and she teaches gender studies at Rutgers University. And she talks about how she became. And essentially what she says is she's not special. She doesn't want to believe she's special. She doesn't think she's all that special. What she thinks is that she got lucky. She got the kind of support most people get. Or I shouldn't say most of the majority people are used to. Now, she grew up in a violent household. Her father was struggled with alcoholism. He was a philanderer. He actually got shot twice. And her mother and he got shot by one of her lovers once while she was pregnant with the author. And she survived the shooting. The pregnancy survived, and the author was born. She survived all of that, went to school, and the school she went to was integrated. But this was Louisiana. And in the South, even when we integrated our schools, there's another book you should look up at some point. I think I mentioned this before. Deny, Delay, Deceit. I'm sorry, that was the phrase. That's not the title of the book. The title of the book is Making Haste Slowly. That's the title of the book.
Got it.
And in that book, there's a strategy that they used in response to the Supreme Court's decision that separate but equal is not equal. And the strategy was, you first deny that there's a problem, that you created a problem. Then, if once you realize they've seen through your lie, then you delay as much as you can before you comply. This sounds familiar, doesn't it? This sounds like somebody else we know right now who just got indicted. And then once you realize you got to do something, you just lie about it. You just fool them, right? My early years of an integrated school system, they essentially segregated us in our classrooms. The best teachers taught white students, and you had classrooms that were predominantly white, and only the best of us got into those classrooms. And the way they did it was by grade average. So they grouped us by grade average. If you were in a predominantly Black class and white, then chances are you weren't the smartest, you weren't the sharpest pencil in the box. Anyway, this author, her teacher realized that she read well. and asked another teacher if she would allow her to come to her class, to transfer to her class. And the other teacher said, yeah, I'll take her on. And she had one Black teacher in the entire school that also chose to invest in her. But without that type of investment, without that type of recognition, and without that type of support, and even then she still had teachers that made her cry, who wouldn't give her a chance. But she also was lucky enough to have a mother who wouldn't lose her job if she had to go into the school for an hour to advocate for her child. But other mothers didn't have that privilege. They couldn't get off, or they didn't have the wherewithal to know they could influence the behavior of the school faculty and how they treated their children. But her point was that she's nothing special. She just has special circumstances that allowed her to get out.
And how many others like her were not given that opportunity and missed as a result?
That was exactly her point. That she knew she had classmates that were just as smart as her. Now, she also had classmates that didn't have the discipline or weren't taught, didn't have to answer to their parents when they got home about what they learned and that kind of stuff. But her point was they were no different than her. And then, and this is what really got me, she said, but because of her success, even within her own culture, other people weaponized her success. And she had a god sister that was bullying her, and her mother called the mother of her god sister to work things out. And the mother of her god sister looked at her child and said, why can't you be like her? Again, the inference is you're a bad student or you're a bad child because of your choices, not because of your circumstances. And so this is where we get the myth that we can pull ourselves up by our bootstraps instead of recognizing the support systems that we need. In that same podcast, Chris Hayes presents a joke about these fish are in the ocean and they meet another school of fish, and one of the fish in the other school says, this is nice water, isn't it? And the first school kind of looks at each other and says, what's water? They take it for granted. They don't even know that they're living in water because that's not what they have to struggle with, right? But when you have to struggle to control your environment or struggle to enjoy your environment or have active obstacles in your environment, you learn to appreciate your environment.
Probably has nothing to do with race or anything else, but I mean, there's a certain amount of discrimination even within your own color for people who are successful. And so we ostracize those who have become highly successful and call them gunners or whatever you want to in school. Was there a tendency when you were growing up for those kids who were a little bit too much in the white classrooms to be not, and I don't know if this is going to sound wrong, but to not be Black enough or something like that?
That doesn't sound wrong. I've heard that. I've heard that most of my life.
Yeah, well, that I didn't know how to say it without sounding incorrect. So if I was,
I know, I understand that, and I appreciate your sensitivity, but courageous conversations, right?
Right.
But yes, but that's human nature, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's the outliers.
Yeah. Well,
on either side.
On either side, exactly. I don't know if it's outliers. I think there is a anti-intellectual, I remember when I was in high school, I ran for student council, president of student council. And this was supposed to be a big deal because I always ran for president of student council. I did it in elementary school. I did it in junior high. And when I got to high school, integration was only 4 years old by the time I was a senior in high school. And I remember my best friend, I was about to give a speech and everything, and my best friend was sitting there telling me, well, Phil, you might not win because some of us don't think you're Black enough. And I remember responding to him and saying, so you're going to vote for the white guy?
Yeah.
And I just kind of looked at him. I said, I don't care if you vote for the white guy, but that's a stupid reason, because I know he's not anywhere close to what you're expecting of me if I'm not black enough. I know I'm blacker than he is. But I really don't think that's the qualification you should be voting for, except that this is a race war. And this is about which race is going to predominate here for you.
So can I ask?
What? You can ask anything.
Did you win?
I don't know. So here's what happened.
Oh,
It came down
the story continues. It wasn't simple voting, huh?
I don't know if simple voting or not. Look, it even divided the faculty.
You the first Black individual to run for a student body position at that high school after integration?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we were forced to integrate in the middle of the year when I was in the 9th grade. And over the next 2 years, while I was ascending to senior status, we were so angry at the solution that the Jackson City Council chose to integrate schools. Essentially, what they did was they closed down all of the historically Black high schools and made them 10th grade centers, except for one.
What's a 10th grade center?
A 10th grade center is where all the students go to. This is how you integrate. This is how they integrated their schools.
Okay.
They sent white and Black students to 10th grade centers. It was only a school for 10th graders. The reason was they didn't want white students graduating from a historically Black high school. They didn't want that name on a diploma. So my wife resents the fact that she graduated from a school that she didn't expect to graduate from. As we went to school, we all knew that in our area, we were going to go to Powell Junior High and then matriculate to Brinkley Senior High and graduate from Brinkley Senior High if we stayed in the area. Her senior year, she got ripped out of Brinkley and sent to a school called Callaway. And her diploma is from Callaway. Now, she doesn't hate Callaway, but she hates the fact that her school isn't on her diploma. And when she went to Callaway, nobody wanted her. So for 2 years, why would anybody from our community run for president of student council? As a matter of fact, when I became a senior, that was the question. Why do you want to be president of student council of this high school? And my response was, well, if we don't start participating, we're never going to be a part of the student government because we're not going back to Brinkley. This system is in play and nobody's going to reverse it. Where was I when you asked me that question? Oh, we're talking about, did I win? So the vote came down to literally 3 or 4 votes. It was so divided that the first time they counted, I think Brian won. My competitor was Brian Rogers. He was a nice guy. I think he won. Then they counted again, and I think I won. And when he won by like 3 votes, I remember a couple of the Black faculty were like, no, this is wrong. And, that's why they ended up counting again, right? And then it was like 3 votes the other way, and this is hand counting. And of course, and when they did that, then somebody's like, no, you messed up again. And you didn't, and so then they had to count again. In the middle of the count, Brian and I were over in a corner just watching it. And Brian just said, I don't want to lead half a school. And I said, me neither. And then I think it was Brian's idea. He said, let's be co-presidents. I said, done. So we walked up, told them, y'all can stop counting. We've agreed to be co-presidents. I remember the principal looking at us like, we don't have a mechanism for that. And so then Brian or I sitting here arguing with the principal. So you want to continue this strife? Whoever becomes president is going to have a problem with the other half of the college, other half of the school. And I think I said, I'm not even supposed to be here. You didn't have a mechanism for that either.
So true.
So we ended up being co-president.
Very good. Should have done that with Bush and Gore.
Aha.
Thank you for joining us for another courageous conversation. Be sure to follow us and check back next week for more.